QAR Chapter 3. Why does Finney not need anyone to know about his breaking of the school swimming record? Melissa, were you in one of these groups? I would like the groups to speak. So somebody from the Chapter 3 group. Chapter 3 group, raise your hands. Okay, Cassie, Navina, Paul. Cassie, start us off. Okay. Good. So he doesn't need this because he has self-satisfaction that works for him. Excellent. And I think that's bridges from what we talked about in the previous chapter, that his source of value comes from himself. He's a very confident person. He has a very secure ego. Excellent. How is this similar to other approaches Finney takes to sports? Yeah.
It's kind of different because, like, when he's talking about sports previously in one of the chapters, it's like you have to win.
Hold on, Chris. I think you might be misquoting. So see what you can find in the book there. Oh, well, borrow one from somebody or something. See what you can find in the book about the winning connected to sports. Navina.
Well, I was going to say that he doesn't need to beat anyone to feel happy with himself.
But give me an example of him doing that somewhere else, where he seems to approach sports with a collaborative, I don't need to win, this is not a competition, I'm just having fun. Navina, talk to me about blitzball. Good. You never get a sense of how exactly you win blitzball? You just play blitzball? And he seems to have fun with that. Can you give me another example of athletic contest where Finney seems to just be delighted in doing it regardless of winning it?
He only plays sports where there's just a team, never individual practice. It's always team groups.
Oh, excellent. And even though he excels within those team groups, it's still part of a team. He's working with others. That's true, Paul. What I'd like to have, though, is some not secondhand examples. We only hear about him playing those sports. We don't see him directly. So let's think about what we see directly. Mitch. Jumping off the tree. Very good. So he jumps off the tree. That does not seem to be competitive in any way. He doesn't seem to be competing with Gene or anybody else. He seems to want everybody to join. So we've got the tree. I'm thinking of something else also toward the end of chapter 1. They're going back to their dorm. They're going back because they're hoping to make dinner. And what happens on the way back? And Finney is delighted both in the winning of the wrestling match and the losing of the wrestling match. Finney's just there to have fun. Finney enjoys that quite a bit. Okay. Now let's hear from Gene. Somebody know the citation, and I don't know if you found it yet or not, Chris, where we talk about the rule by which Finney leads his life concerning sports. Remember, he calls these commandments. What's the commandment that he develops regarding sports? Melissa, what page are you on? 35. Okay.
Like, above it, it's talking about the commandments, but then in the first, like, full paragraph, it says football, one which had the most urgent influence in his life was you always win at sports. This you was collective. Everyone always won at sports.
Keep going. Read the entire paragraph.
When you played a game, you won in the same way as when you sat down to a meal, you ate it.
Inevitably.
Okay. And naturally followed. Finney never permitted himself to realize that when you won, they lost. That would have destroyed the perfect beauty which was sport. Nothing bad ever happened in sports. They were the absolute good.
Finney's view? What is Gene's contrasting view? Mitch? You always win at sports, and winners need losers. Is anybody familiar with the concept of the zero-sum game? Has anybody ever heard this term before? Okay, blankness, I guess not. Let me teach you what the zero-sum game is. Zero-sum game is the idea that in order for me to advance, and let's put some math to it, that's a sum, right? Zero-sum game, it's a mathematic expression. In order for me to advance, what must happen? You must go back. And for every step forward that I take, you take a step backward. It's a model of competition, which adds up to what? 0. That's why it's called the zero-sum game. It's a model of competition. It's a theory that every time I win something, somebody else has to lose an equal amount. And therefore, there's balance. Gene's view is the zero-sum game, that in order for me to win, you must lose. Whereas Finney's is that we can all win and everybody be happy and the overall balance being positive, because you always won at sports. Where does this conflict come out most strongly for Gene? Where does this conflict in ideology or philosophy bother him the most? Cassie?
I think it's when Finny used the record. Because, Finny, like, doesn't really care if it's not certain that way, but Gene will see it like a time rally or like a witness and stuff, so like, put it
Because he feels that Finney hasn't really done anything real until it's been recognized, right? That he hasn't won a record until somebody else has lost a record. Think about it for a moment. Finney is proposing that both of them hold the record. Is that possible? Technically not. And in Gene's world, he says, no, you can't both hold the record. Somebody's got to hold the record, and that means that somebody must lose the record. Let's settle this. It's illogical. It's contradictory in his mind, and he starts freaking out about it. He gets really upset. Why does he become upset? Because he is feeling this contrast between these two ideas so strongly. Question 3. Which view of sports do you find better? Cassie?
Well, I thought Finny's view of sports is really, like, optimistic.
Uh-huh.
I think it's, like, a good way to, like, live life, but also Gene's is more, like, real, I guess.
Cassie, I love it because you are, first of all, whether you know it or not, you're answering this almost like a debater would answer it. You look at a definition of the word better. I intentionally included that word so that you would have to sort of question what is meant by better. And many of you come up with ideas for what better means. Now, Cassie's proposed 2 ideas for what better means. Cassie says optimism. I'm going to change that a little bit for idealism. And then, Cassie, what's the contrast of idealism? You mentioned it.
Well, I just think that he's, like, more like realism.
Yep. Realism includes the way things are, looking at the world the way it actually is. Idealism doesn't look this way. What does idealism do?
It's the way you want the world to be.
Yeah, the way it should be. If you are an idealist, Finney's view is better. If you are a realist, Gene's view is better. So when you say better, what is your criterion for judging better? If it's which one leads to a happier world, which one seems to create a happier world, oh, it's Finney's in a heartbeat. If you say which one is more realistic, it's genes. Which one is better suited for living life? Seems like genes is better suited for living life. Which world would we rather live in? Probably Finney's. Which world are we living in a separate piece? Okay, keep going with that. Which world are we living in a separate piece? Sarah? That's true. And what makes this world more realistic than most worlds that you will live in? Bingo. Because this is a book about war, one of the most realistic and serious confrontations and competitions that you can possibly exist in. Yesterday, we discussed which of these views, or which of these boys would be more suited for war. And we decided, well, Finney seems to have the qualities of a hero, but he doesn't seem to have the very realistic qualities of a soldier, which is to be careful and to follow orders and do what you're told, and not to be foolhardy and just rush in without thinking. Not to be spontaneous, but to be carefully calculated and trained well. So Finney doesn't seem to work very well for war there. And now we've got this new one saying that Finney doesn't seem to have a view of competition that'll work very well for war. What would Finney have to do in a war that every soldier must be prepared to do? Kill. In other words, he must recognize the zero-sum game saying, in order for me to live, you must die. Finney doesn't seem geared to do that. He doesn't seem to be programmed that way. Especially when you realize that his primary purpose in life is this unregulated flow of friendliness that Gene talks about. Again, through the first 3 chapters, we are telling a story, we are developing characters, but always, Knowles is making a character examination that should always bring you back to considerations of war. These boys are on war's doorstep.